Welcome back to the show. Today we are going to talk about all of the things, all of the reasons we give that stop us moving forward and doing things in our life that we know are going to help us, that we know are going to make us feel better. And they stop us moving forward. In the personal development world, they have a fancy name for this. They call it limiting beliefs. In the normal world, we call them excuses. I think it's better to call them excuses because it's got more of a punch than the phrase limiting beliefs. A lot of the time we use these phrases and it makes things seem a bit fancy when really we're just making excuses for not making changes. So I'm going to talk to you about the most common excuses and limiting beliefs that I've come across over the years that have come up in my life. And I hear from people all the time who are thinking about doing coaching programs. This refers to emotional and psychological work, like the stuff I do that's in my coaching and my online programs and my books. But they also apply to anything else in life. So this video isn't specific to my stuff. If you are thinking about changing your life in any way, whether that's psychologically or emotionally, whether it's physical fitness, anything you're thinking of doing, changing jobs, changing relationships, these topics are likely to be coming up for you if you haven't made the changes. So I'm going to go through all the big ones, all of the ones I can think of. If by the end of it, there's anything I haven't covered that you would like me to, that has come up for you, feel free to drop it in the comments and I'll do another video on it, another episode. And if you hang around till the end, I'll give you one big point that I don't hear talked about in any other place when it comes to limiting beliefs and excuses, that I think is an overarching thing that is transformational if you embrace it, but we'll talk about that at the end. Let's get stuck in. I'll start with the biggest ones because these are the most common ones, and you're likely to have used these as excuses yourself for all kinds of things over the years. And I have done it. I've heard it so many times over the years. And the two excuses are I don't have enough time or I don't have enough money to do whatever it is I know I need to do. These two things, the first way to address them, I always recommend, I go through a big exercise of this in the start of my online program, is an audit. So whatever your excuse is, whether it's time or money, you should do. If you're telling yourself you can't do whatever it is you say you want to do because you don't have enough time or you don't have enough money, the first thing you should do is an audit of time and money in your life. And what I mean by an audit is analyze it properly in detail. Go through your time, go through your daily schedule, your weekly schedule, go through your bank account for the last 3 months and see where you're currently spending your time and your money. Because the chances are in both of those places for most of us, if for some it'll be more in one than the other, you are spending time or money that you could allocate somewhere else if you really want to make changes. There is a distinction here because some people have more access to time and some people have more access to money. So if you have more access to money, what you're likely to be able to do is reallocate the money to create more time. You might have a lot of money. This is true of a lot of people who are in big careers or run businesses and they're time poor, but they've got a decent amount of money. You can reallocate money to create more time. And the same is true the other way around. So if you say to me, but Paul, I've got no money, and even if I do an audit of all my money, there's no way I can find money to invest in training or courses or coaching or therapy or working with a personal trainer, then what you're likely to be able to do, if that is true, and it's often not fully true, there's no black or white in this, think of it on a scale, it's probably not fully true. But even if it is more true, that if I sat down with you and went through your bank balance, your bank accounts, you were like, there's no money to free up here, then you need to focus more on time. Because if you've got no money, it's still not an excuse, a valid excuse to not change your life, because there are so many free resources out there now. Look at this as a perfect example. You can learn from so many people online now for free that are experts in whatever you want to do. Whatever topic it is you want to change your life in, you can literally go on YouTube or on podcasts and for free learn from some of the greatest people on the planet in that space. So If you've got no money at all to spare to invest in whatever it is you want to do, focus on time. And the time thing, that I've never met anybody that can't reallocate time. What it comes down to in both categories is priorities. Start asking yourself, if you do an audit of where you spend your time and where you spend your money, and you tell yourself a story, and there's an extra limiting belief and excuse inside this, which is, even after doing that audit, you can't make changes. That's another excuse. I've never sat down with anybody and done this exercise and not been able to find time or money from doing this, including in my own life, because what it is a question of priorities. Let's use time as the example, because that's the one everybody can reallocate. Wherever you're currently spending your time is a list. If you make a list of the order in which where you spend your most time, then your second most, third most, that is a list of your priorities in life. And you are making conscious choices to do those things. And they're the things you can change. So let's use a big example of this, right? Which will trigger a lot of people. Let's say you've got kids, and you say to me, I know a lot of people who would say this, I don't have time to do anything because I'm constantly doing things for my kids. I start asking questions, right, that challenge those things. If I'm having this conversation with someone, the most brutal question is, okay, well, what are you doing with the kids? And a lot of the time it will be, after school, I take them to all kinds of different classes and clubs and blah, blah, blah. They go to football, they go to dancing, they go to singing. And the first thing you can say is, okay, well, you can stop doing that. You can make a choice to free up time to invest in your own life by not taking your kid to as many things as you currently take them to. And you could push back on me in that and say, well, that would make me a bad parent, blah, blah, blah. It's bullshit. Kids, I go back to when I was a child. I wasn't taken to things after school every night of the week. I wasn't kept busy constantly. It's healthy for kids to learn how to play by themselves and to be bored and find their own ways to entertain themselves. So we need to be more honest and more brutally honest with ourselves about where we're allocating this time and why. And a lot of the time, it's actually we're making excuses because we don't want to expose ourselves. It's basically built on fear. This excuse of I don't have time or money, it's just fear. We're just using it as a way of not facing the fact we don't want to do this thing. If I gave you all the time in the world and all the money in the world, you still wouldn't do it, probably, because it's the fear that's stopping you, not the thing you're using as an excuse. So it's important to look at those things and be as honest with yourself as you can. And this comes to the point I'll make at the end, which we'll come back to. But this is the key. If you are using time or money as an excuse, the key is to look at where you're spending the money, spending the time, and being completely honest with yourself about your priorities. Is it a priority in your life to make the change you say you want to make? So, for example, if you're saying you want to work with a therapist or a coach to help your psychological or emotional health, but you don't have the time or the money to do it, when you look at that list of where you're spending your time or money, where else are you spending it and why are you prioritizing that above yourself? It comes back to a general point, which comes up a lot in the personal development world, about putting ourselves first. You may have heard the oxygen mask analogy. When you're on a plane, they tell you if there's an emergency and the oxygen masks come down, put your own oxygen mask on first. Why? Because if you don't, you're going to run out of oxygen before you've helped everyone you're trying to help. So you've got to help yourself first. It's a very extreme example, but I always say this to people, that you can't, if you want to be the best person in your life for everybody else in your life, you can't do that unless you're the best version of you. And the only way you can be the best version of you is to look after yourself first. So without being the best you can't be the best dad, you can't be the best mom, you can't be the best employee, sibling, child, friend. So it's selfless. We've been raised in our society to think it's selfish to look after ourselves, but it's actually selfless, because if you look after yourself first, you're the best version of you to be the best everything else in your life. There's obviously nuance to that. It's not black and white. There are times when we put other people before us, obviously. But I often say to people these days, investing in yourself is the greatest gift you can give to anyone around you, especially, I would say, especially to your romantic partners and to your children, because we've been raised in our societies. Our society is backwards, basically. It's upside down. We've been raised to think so many things are important to children, to partners that aren't. The most important thing you can give to your partners is to be emotionally and psychologically healthy and physically healthy, connected to that. And we don't prioritize those things at all. We act as though living in a big house and having lots of money and having a nice car and going to lots of after school events are the best things for our kids. They're not. Kids couldn't give up a flying fuck. Kids would rather live in a tent and have time spent with an emotionally and psychologically healthy parent that they can play with every day. That's the truth from a kid's perspective. But we've created this world that's upside down. Something that's also huge in this is our ego. The way our ego is built, it's to protect us. So it's great at hiding things from us that it doesn't want us to see. So this is not, whenever I'm talking about any of this stuff, I'm not preaching from an ivory tower. I'm sharing with you the mistakes I've made over the years. And I've been doing this work now for 8 years solidly, intensively in my own life, and coaching other people and writing about it and doing videos like this, sharing what I've learned. And yet, even with all that work, my ego still hides things from me. Like I've been working on curing chronic health conditions for those 8 years. My life has changed in so many ways, psychologically, emotionally, and improved in so many ways. But my health conditions haven't. They haven't got better. And it was only last November. I'm recording this in May 2026. It was only last November that I was looking at my life and reflecting on it and doing these exercises that I share with you to do. And I realized for the first time that despite doing this work for 7.5 years back then, I had never prioritized my health. It had never made it to number one on my priorities list. But my ego had hidden that from me. I talked as though I was. I talked as though it was the most important thing in my life, but it wasn't. If I looked at where I spent my time and money, it was all on other things, running my business, dealing with my partner, dealing with my stepkids back then at the time, dealing with family, dealing with friends. And the way you can flush that out is I'd think, right, well, what's the priority? If I'm prioritizing my health, that's the number one thing on my list. But then something would come up that I need to do on my business. And I'd be like, okay, well, I need to do that first. Like, okay, well, that's a higher priority than your health then, isn't it? And at that point, I was like, okay, that's got to change. So then my business got put on the back burner because my health became my priority. That is my number one thing. So whenever I need to make a decision now, that's like, right, I've got to solve my chronic health problems. That's the biggest issue in my life. So whenever a decision is to be made, and again, it's nuanced, but the vast majority of the time, if there's a question between, do I do this thing that helps my health, or do I do this other thing, whether that's romantic partner, family, business, I prioritize my health. And that's in time and in money. So we could talk about this all day. The key is whatever excuse you're making for not making changes, whether that's investing in coaching, investing in therapy, investing in courses, working with a personal trainer, whatever it is, ask yourself where you're spending that time and money, and in what ways could you redirect that time and money to work on the thing that is going to impact your life the most. At the end of the day, if you don't make changes, nothing's going to change. That's the biggest one. The next one I hear is that people will say to me, well, I've tried everything in whatever area of life it is. I've tried everything before. So whatever this new thing is won't work. And I empathize with that a lot, especially for me in my experience with this in the physical healing world, because I've tried so many things. And then again, last year when I was reassessing this stuff, I was realizing that this tied into the priorities thing. I was like, well, that's bullshit. Whenever you say to yourself, I've tried everything before, that in itself, just think about that. It's bullshit. Just think about if I was sitting down having a conversation with you and I said to you, so you've tried everything. Imagine an example I often give is personal training, getting in shape, because that makes sense, resonates with more people than psychological and emotional work because it's more common. So let's say you're overweight or you're out of shape and you want to get into shape. and you say to me, I've tried everything, Paul, and just hasn't worked. If I sat down with you and said, really, you've tried everything, how long would it take for me to poke at that before you'd go to me? Yeah, it's bullshit, actually. I haven't tried everything. Most of the time, it's one of two things, and often both. You've either not fully committed to whatever you've tried in the past, and or the things you've tried in the past just weren't the right things for you. They weren't the good fit for you. And what I realized with my health journey is it was more the latter. So I made a commitment that I would leave. This was the phrase I had. I will leave no stone unturned until I've healed from all of my chronic illnesses. That's it. So I won't stop. I won't suddenly go, oh, I know everything now, or this isn't working for me, so I'm not going to try anymore. If it's not working, I'll explore why. Am I not doing everything I need to be doing? If I'm being completely honest with myself, again, this ties into the point we're going to talk about at the end. And or is this thing just not resonating with me? Because this is crucial if you're trying to change your life. And it's something hardly anyone in the personal development space talks about. It is so important that the thing you're doing to change your life resonates with you and clicks with you. One of the downfalls in any self-help space is that people share what changed their life and they become evangelical about it. Understandably so, right? But then they think that thing works for everybody else. So they tell you that you should do their thing. And what I've realized over the years is that's bullshit. It's just bullshit. Some things work for some people and some things don't. So my favorite examples of this are things like, and this one winds me up, like the club who love getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and think that makes them superior to everybody else. It's bullshit. If you sleep 8 to 10 hours a night, right, which is scientifically recommended, and even then, is that the right amount for you? It's all about you, not them, right? So find out how much sleep you need a night and sleep that amount. Whether you get up at 5 a.m. in the morning or midday, it doesn't matter. You're just shifting the 8-hour window to change what time you get up. It does not make you morally superior to get up at 5 a.m. So if you don't like getting up at 5 a.m., and there is science that backs this in the sleep world, that people have different rhythms for their sleep patterns. If you don't like getting up at 5 a.m. and you force yourself to do it, it is not going to work, because you're going to start doing it for a while and then at some point you're just going to stop because it's not right for you. And then this is part of the problem with the personal development world. You are then likely to build on, in my stuff I do with emotions, you're going to be building on shame, because you're going to feel ashamed of yourself. You're going to feel like you're not good enough, which adds and makes everything worse, when actually it's just that you weren't following the thing that clicks with you. So really important, if you think you've tried everything before, be honest with yourself. Have you really committed to those things? And if you have, don't give up. There is something else out there in whatever field it is you're looking at. There is something else out there you haven't tried yet that will work for you. You've just got to keep looking for it. And there's research that backs this up. Even in things like therapy, the rapport you have with the therapist, the rapport you have with a coach is massively important. So if you're trying to learn from someone, a coach or a therapist, personal trainer even, and you have no rapport with them, you're less likely to be successful. So find people that you resonate with. Find people that you like, that your story matches their story. You like the way they talk about whatever it is you're trying to change, and do that. Don't let yourself believe that you've tried everything before and it doesn't work. It ties into something else we're going to talk about in a minute. The next one that's connected to this, which is the flip side, a lot of these are the flip sides of each other, is people will say to me, well, I've never tried anything. I've never done. So in my world, I've never done any therapy or coaching. So I'm afraid it won't work for me because I don't understand any of it. And again, the same point applies. Well, okay, you need to find something that works for you as a beginner. There's a great analogy I've heard with this about golf. You're often best learning from someone who's just a few steps ahead of you. This applies the way around as well. If you think about being a coach, you're coaching people. You can coach people before you're an expert. I started doing that years ago, because you can coach people who are 2-3 steps behind you on the same journey you're on, and you can teach them whatever you've just learned because it'll resonate with them more because you still understand what they're dealing with. The golf analogy is a great one because if you're a beginner golfer, it might sound great to be coached by Tiger Woods or Rory McIlroy, but actually they wouldn't be a great coach for a beginner golfer because they're so far past just learning how to hit a golf ball with a club. They're probably unlikely to be able to help you. I remember one of my uncles tried to help me playing golf years and years ago, this was. And the thing he was trying to teach, bear in mind, I was shit. I didn't know how to hit a golf ball with a club. The thing he kept saying to me to try and help me was, as you're spinning your body, make sure your belt buckle gets to the ball before your shoulders do, like in line with the ball. And I remember as he was telling me that, thinking, what the fuck is he talking about? So as I'm trying to hit a fucking golf ball, I'm thinking about my belt buckle. And it just wasn't helping me at all. Now, in whatever, he's been playing golf for 30 years, he's a really good golfer. In whatever stage he's at, that clearly helped him. Whoever taught him that helped. It didn't help me. I needed beginner fucking advice. And once I got that advice, I got better. So find someone, if you've never tried anything in the field you're in, find someone that you feel really comfortable with, that you will understand. My work is designed in the psychology and emotional stuff. It's designed to help you no matter where you are, because I like to talk in plain language. So no matter where you are on the journey, it has a different impact. It's like playing a computer game. Like you join it, and wherever your knowledge is, it will take you to the next level. And basically you can just keep going round the levels, because every time you do it, you learn more, you learn something different, you get better. And every level you go through, because you're better, the game gets harder, especially in the psychology and emotional space. You can just keep going over and over the same work. So no matter the way I've designed what I do and my online program and my coaching, no matter where you join it, whether you're an expert, whether you've done loads of stuff before, or whether you've done nothing, there's a testimonial on my website from someone who came to a course, a weekend event a few years ago, and he said exactly that. He'd been doing this work for years, and it helped him go to the next level. And someone he brought with him to the weekend event had never done anything, and they got loads out of it as well, because it hits you no matter where you are. When you can find something like that, it's gold dust. So whatever it is you're trying to change in your life, if you've never tried anything before, find someone that will help you where you are. This ties into, both of the last two tie into another connected limiting belief excuse, is that you think you're a special case, so nothing can help. I see this so often. And again, this is a trick of the ego. The ego wants us to feel special. One of our key subconscious needs is the need for significance. So our ego wants to tell us we're special. The irony is it's doing that to keep us stuck, because the ego doesn't want us to move. It's only consciously we want to go to a different place because we think it will be better. The ego is happy where we are. It doesn't care about external happiness. It just cares about safety and meeting your internal needs. And it's meeting your needs without you knowing it right now anyway. And it's keeping you safe right now because you're alive. So it's going to tell you that you're special in order to keep you stuck. And the sad reality is none of us are special. We're all, well, there's two ways of looking at this, right? We are all unique. There is nobody like you on the planet. There's nobody like me on the planet. We have got a unique background. The programming we've had since we were kids is not like anybody else. Even if we have a twin sibling, our experience compared to them is completely different. It is unique. So we are special in that sense. And at the same time, we are all built on the same operating system. So I often say to people when they first come to me to speak about coaching, the sad thing is, I wish everybody could see what I've seen over the years, because I get the privilege of seeing behind the curtain into people's lives. And one of the phrases I've come up with over the years is we're all living the same life in different houses. One of the problems we have is that we think our problems are just our problems, and they're not. I can tell you for a fact they're not. Whatever you're going through, the good news is loads of other people on the planet are going through the exact same thing right now, no matter how serious it is, no matter how significant it is. And that's comforting, because it means there's a way out. You can always find someone who has been through the thing you've been through. So trying your best to stay away from that story. Again, go back to what we've just been talking about. Whatever it is you need help with, if you find the right person to help you, if you find the right system, the right program, the right coach, the right therapist, you can change your life 100% in whatever area you want to do it in. Your situation is not so different that you can't be helped. I promise you that. And I'm telling you that from experience of speaking to people all around the world, all different genders, ethnicities, nationalities, sexualities, backgrounds, people who are elite sports stars, all the way down to normal people in normal working life. We're all built on the same stuff. So one of the things I often say to people actually at the start of a call, when someone comes for a discovery call in coaching, is there is no judgment, because either whatever you're going to tell me is something I've experienced myself or something I've heard hundreds of times. And I set a challenge for people that if you can tell me something that will shock me, that will surprise me, I'll give you 10 grand. And no one's ever won. No one's ever won that, because nothing anyone ever says shocks me or surprises me. And it's incredible how often someone will start something they're about to tell me with, I know this will shock you, or I know this is weird, or I know this is stupid. And I'm always intrigued about what's going to come out their mouth next, because they think it's abnormal. And I think it's absolutely normal because of what I've seen in humans and what happens to us all. So I promise you, nothing that you're experiencing is significantly different to anybody else. You can change whatever it is you're trying to do. The next one that I hear intermittently, not all the time, but again, two sides of the same coin. Either I'm too old or I'm too young to do this work. That in itself, the fact that those two sides of the coins exist, almost give the answer that you're never too old and you're never too young. The too old thing, however old you are, I saw someone talking about longevity a few months ago, and they were saying, in the era we live now, if you can just keep yourself alive for another few years, 5, 10, 15 years, the breakthroughs in science are going to mean we're living longer and longer and longer. We're already, average ages have increased massively in the past 100 years, obviously. By the time I died, I've got it in my head, I'll probably live till about 100, but that gives me another 50 odd years on the planet, just if I just look after myself and I don't have any serious accidents. But in that 50 years, the longevity stuff's probably going to go exponential. So I could end up with a lifespan of 150 years or 200 years, who knows? I've just got to keep myself alive long enough to do that. However old you are right now, just think about what time have you got left and what you want to do in that time. Think about, I coach someone who works in this industry, but if you look at anyone who's done interviews about palliative care, people talking to someone on their deathbed, the number one regret people have on their deathbed tends to be about regrets. I wish I'd have lived the life I wanted to live. So think about yourself on your own deathbed and looking back, what will you wish you would have done? Even if you think you're going to be dead in 5 years, or would you rather that 5 years was spent making the changes you wanted to make? It's never too late to make some change. So no matter how old you are, I'd say it's worth it. Only you can make that decision. We'll come to that point at the end of this again. The too young one, geez. I coached someone a few months ago who was in his early 20s, and I was so happy to do it, because I just wish I could go back and coach. I wish that me now could coach me in my teens. The younger, the better to do any work, to change your life, to do psychological and emotional work, especially. Jesus. Like the issue you have as you get older is you've got more stuff that's built up that you've got to sort out. The younger you are, the better it is, because you haven't got as much stuff. You haven't got as much shit to clear out. You haven't got as much damage to repair. So the younger, the better. It's honestly, if you find the right coach, the right therapist, the right program, whatever it is you're looking for, no matter how young you are, if you're watching this and you think you're too young to do anything, please don't listen to that voice, and find someone to help you that resonates with you in whatever it is you're trying to change, because you're never too young, you're never too old. Another one that's connected to this stuff is a line. One of the reasons I got into coaching actually in the first place is that I shouldn't have these problems. So this is built on shame. I shouldn't have these problems, therefore I shouldn't do anything about them, because, this applies especially in the psychology and emotional world. For example, I feel depressed, but I had a nice childhood and I've got a nice life, so I shouldn't feel these things. It's just bullshit. Don't listen to that voice. We haven't got time in this episode to go into the full background to this, but the reason we have problems in our adult lives always traces back to our childhood, and it's because we experience issues as children that aren't the same as issues as adults. We experience trauma as children differently to how we experience trauma as adults. We see things differently. Though if you can get into the eyes of a child and see the world through the eyes of a child, everything's fucking petrifying. Think about it just being small. I saw someone do this as an experiment years ago. If you just literally get down to the height of a child and look at what the world looks like from their height, you can start to empathize more with why trauma is different for children than it is for grown-ups, because they see the world differently. So no matter how good your childhood was, no matter how good your life has been, there is no such thing as you shouldn't have these problems. If you come to me with any problem, I can show you why you've got that problem based on the life you've had. And it makes perfect sense. It's the opposite of I shouldn't have them. I would be more surprised if you didn't have the problems. And I go back to why I said I started coaching people is I realized that if you look at my childhood and my life on paper at a surface level, it looks perfect. I was raised in a lovely family, in a nice place. I never struggled for food or shelter. I was never abused. My life was just, it looked picture perfect. I was top of my class in school. I went to university, first person in my family to go to university. I built this dream life that on paper looked like a dream life. And yet behind the scenes, by my mid-30s, I was depressed and suicidal. So I was the classic. I shouldn't have these problems. And then the more I learned about humans and how they operate, I realized that, the problems I have are absolutely normal for someone who's had the experiences I've had and the programming I've had in the ways I've had them for me, for someone like me with my level of sensitivity to the world. So don't let that phrase creep in and stop you making changes. There is no such thing as I shouldn't have these problems. We've all got our own unique experience of the world. The problems we face are the problems we face, and there is a way out of them. Something that's connected to that, which again is tied to shame, is I've heard in the past is I don't want people to know I'm getting help. This is especially true of obviously psychological and emotional problems. And I remember this. I remember when I first started seeing a therapist 8 years ago, his office was in a city centre apartment block in the middle of Liverpool city centre where I'd worked most of my life. And I lived, and all my business contacts were there, and I was known in the community. And I remember coming out of the building the first time I'd been for a therapy session, and I bumped into a business contact, and I remember shitting myself thinking, he's going to know I've just been to a therapy session and that's going to ruin my fucking business because he's going to start questioning why I'm seeing a therapist. And I look back and think, God, how amazing is that that's where my mind went when I was leaving a building that had hundreds of companies in. There is no way this guy would have known I'd been to a therapy session, but that ties into a lot of the deep-rooted stuff that I've been working on for years. But I can empathize with that massively. If that's you, if you think, I don't want anyone to know I'm getting help. Well, the great thing is in this day and age, even more so than 8 years ago when I was first seeing a therapist, going to see people in person was the main way to do it. But since then, one of the knock-on effects of COVID and the lockdowns, one of the benefits we've had off the back of that terrible time is everybody transitioned to online work, video calls. So now the therapist I work with is based in LA, California. Like, I'll never meet them in person. It's all a video call. I do it from home. So you can make changes to your life now without anybody knowing you're doing anything. As you get further down the road, this is, as I say, this is built on shame. This idea that I don't want anyone to know I'm getting help. There is lots of deep-rooted stuff behind this. So I would recommend that you work on that as part of whatever work you're doing, because it's really important to be able to talk about this stuff, because then when we're not adding shame to the shame piles, stockpiles inside us. I'm going to do another episode on this. later in a few weeks probably about shame specifically, because it's such a big part of our lives. So it helps to talk about it. The antidote to shame in a nutshell is to shine light on it, basically. Bring it out into the open. So I talk about this stuff freely now. Think about how different that is to the guy who was afraid someone would know I'd been to a therapist 8 years ago. So it's important to work on that. But know to begin with, you can do this in secret. You can do video calls from home, from your car, from a library, you can hire spaces that are private. You could do it sitting on a park bench where nobody can hear you. You can do online courses like my program that you can do from anywhere, comfort of your own home. You can read books, you can watch YouTube videos. Nobody knows what you're doing. So if you are worried about doing work and people finding out about it, know that you can do it in secret, basically. You can do it in private. And then coming to the last bit that I've been teasing you with right since the start of this episode, one of the big overarching things that it's worth really thinking about with this stuff that I don't hear very many people talking about at all is to stop bullshitting yourself. A big part of my coaching and the work I do is to give you a kick up the arse when you need it and to put an arm around your shoulder when you need it. And this is the kick up the arse bit, which is if you're not making changes in your life and you've listened to me talk about all these common excuses, limiting beliefs, and you're still dismissing things because you're like, well, that won't work in my life for whatever reason because I'm different, I'm special, this is too extreme, I've got no money, I've got no time. Stop bullshitting yourself, because the truth is we make the time, we make the money, we overcome the hurdles to do the things we really, really want to do. So if you don't really, really want to do something, you're going to come up with excuses that justify it to yourself. But what that leads to is, at a deep subconscious level, is you being unhappy, unfulfilled, no contentment, no peace in your life. And one of the ways, counterintuitively, I've helped loads of people find peace and contentment in their life, I was literally chatting to a client about this the other day, is to be honest with yourself. This client was telling me that by doing this work, he is the big part of his life. He hasn't changed what he did in his life. He's changed how he thinks and feels about those things. So now he's just honest with himself about it. It's given him more peace. He's happier. So the example I always give is, and this is one for losing weight, right? For getting in shape. If you tell yourself you want to get in shape, and you don't do the things that you know you need to do to get in shape, you're going to be unhappy. There's a previous episode on this worth looking up, which is the happiness equation. Happiness or contentment is equal to reality minus expectations. And I talk about it in that video as well. But if you look at it and go, do you know what? If I just stop bullshitting myself and I admit that I don't want to go to the fucking gym, I don't want to work out, and I don't want to eat a good diet, and I'm just okay with that, then you can just be content and peaceful being out of shape and overweight. It will change your life by just stop bullshitting yourself. Stop making excuses. This is a huge part of the work I coach, is taking radical responsibility. You are a grown-up. Everything that happens in your life is because of a choice you have made, and it's likely to be a choice you've not just made once, but you make every day, repeatedly. Whether it's the job you're in, the shape you're in, your psychological and emotional issues, the relationship you're in, your relationship with your kids, with your family, with your friends. These are decisions you're making all the time. No one is forcing you to do them the vast majority of the time. You might tell yourself you've got no choice, but it's bullshit. If you take radical responsibility, you have a choice. You might not like the other choice, but this is where stop bullshitting yourself comes into it. Because if you suddenly say to yourself, oh, this is a choice I make, and I'm making this choice all the time, and I'm okay with that choice, you become more content, rather than telling yourself that you don't have a choice. And I'm sure, and I'm happy to hear your excuses and comments of why you're so different to everybody else, but it's bullshit. Feel free to drop things in, and I'll respond to specific points if you want to throw them in. It's bullshit. You're not so special. You're not so different to everybody else. You're just making excuses if you don't make the changes you think you want to make. So be honest with yourself And that honesty will help you find peace and contentment more than you've ever found. On the flip side of that, once you stop bullshitting yourself, you can say, do I really want to get in shape? Do I really want to make my psychological and emotional health better? Okay, well, what do I need to do? Find a way to do that thing. Forget whatever excuse or limiting belief is in the way. Find a way to make it happen. I often talk about this as a whole different episode we can do on procrastination, but a similar thing. The example I often give is I'm a big Liverpool fan, football fan. Liverpool, in my adult lifetime, have got to Champions League finals 5 times, I think. And those 5 times spanned lots of different times in my life, ages. The first time I was a single man and I was 25, then going through life in a relationship, married, running a business. Every time they got to a final, I went. Why? Because I wanted to. So no matter what was in my way at the time, money, time, energy, relationships, I just went. I sorted my flight. And even that, logistics. Some of the journeys I had to go on to get to the place the final was in were ridiculous. I could easily have made excuses. I could easily have brought limiting beliefs in, but I didn't. Why? Because I really, really wanted to go. So I just overcame everything that was in my way to get there. Think about that in your life. Think about the things, because there will be stuff over the years that no matter what happened, you made sure you were at that thing or you did that thing. And all the excuses you could have made just melted away. It's the same with anything else. Sometimes we're just bullshitting ourselves that we want this thing. We don't really. We don't want it enough. So be honest with yourself. And if you stop bullshitting yourself and you accept your reality more, you lower your expectations, you'll be more content and peaceful anyway, which is what I think this is all about. Happiness is a temporary state. It's an emotion like sadness. We'll sometimes be happy, we'll sometimes be sad, but peace and contentment is like a nice middle ground sort of baseline we can aim to be at most of the time that makes our life way more fulfilling, way better than where we've ever been. So that's everything. As I say, if there's anything that you can think of that I've not listed here, an excuse or a limiting belief that you've come across or either somewhere else or in your life that you'd like me to address, throw it in the comments wherever you're watching this, and I'll make a follow-up to deal with any questions or comments that come in. I hope that's helped. Take care. See you next time.